I always thought betrayal would announce itself. Something loud, obvious, explosive, a lipstick stain, a message popping up at the wrong time, a confession delivered through tears. What I didn't expect was a quiet Tuesday afternoon and a single line buried in a bank statement. I wasn't even looking for anything suspicious. I was reviewing our joint account because our accountant had asked for quarterly summaries. Numbers, spreadsheets, predictable adult responsibilities. Nothing dramatic. That's when I saw it. $1,842.73. Azure Private Lounge, Miami Beach. The date froze me. April 17th. I didn't need to check the calendar. I already knew that date. Nora had flown to Atlanta that morning for a 3-day corporate leadership training. She'd complained about the early flight, sent me a selfie from the airport lounge, texted me when she landed. Atlanta, not Miami. I stared at the charge long enough for the screen to dim. Then I tapped it again like maybe the location would magically change. Didn't. The transaction wasn't pending. It was cleared, processed, final, under her card, under her name. I leaned back in my chair, telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Fraud happens. Cards get skimmed. Maybe the corporate office reimbursed something weird. Maybe it was a group booking and someone else paid her back. But then I noticed something else. It was categorized as VIP experience. Not food. Not general dining. VIP experience. My stomach tightened in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't call her right away. I didn't send a text demanding answers. I didn't **T it and confront her in anger. I waited. That's what bothered me most about that moment. How calm I was. I waited until she came home 2 days later. She walked in like nothing in the world was wrong. Hair styled perfectly. That faint, expensive perfume she only wore on business trips. She dropped her carry-on by the stairs and smiled at me. "Hey," she said, leaning up to kiss my cheek. "Miss me?" "Of course," I said, and I meant it. That's the part people don't talk about. You can suspect something and still love the person in front of you. We moved through the normal routine. She unpacked halfway, left the rest on the chair like she always did. I poured her a glass of water. She started talking about how exhausting the seminars were, how corporate politics were draining her. Atlanta sounded detailed. Too detailed. After dinner, I finally said it. "Hey," I began casually, sitting across from her at the kitchen island. "Quick question." She didn't look up from her phone. "What's up?" "I was reviewing the account earlier for tax stuff," I said evenly. "There's a charge from a private lounge in Miami on the 17th. That's the day you were in Atlanta." Silence. Not dramatic silence. Not the kind from movies. Just a micropause. Her thumb stopped scrolling. Then she looked up. Her expression changed so subtly most people would miss it. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She assessed. "Are you going through my transactions now?" she asked, tone instantly colder. "It's our joint account," I replied calmly. I wasn't digging. It just stood out. She set her phone down slowly. Wow, that one word carried more accusation than an entire argument. "I just asked a question," I said. "No." She **T back. "You implied something." "I didn't imply anything." "You absolutely did, Adam." The way she said my name, sharp, clipped, made my chest tighten. "I'm trying to understand," I said carefully. "You said you were in Atlanta." "I was," she said. "The training ended early. They flew us to Miami for a networking event." I blinked. "You didn't mention that." "Because I didn't think I needed to provide you with a full itinerary," she snapped. There it was. Heat rising. Defensive posture. Redirecting energy. "I'm not accusing you," I said quietly. "It just caught my attention." She let out a short laugh that didn't sound amused. "This is exactly the problem," she said. "You don't trust me." "I never said that." "You don't have to say it. It's in your tone. It's in the way you monitor things." "Monitor?" I repeated. "Yes, monitor. Scrutinize. Question." Her voice was rising now. Mine stayed even. That's not what this is. Then what is it? She demanded. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like paranoia. Paranoia. The word hit harder than I expected. I saw an $1,800 charge in a different city, I said slowly. Most people would ask. Most insecure people, she corrected. That stung. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter. Observation. She stood up, crossing her arms. Honestly, Adam, you've been emotionally distant for months. And now, instead of working on that, you're trying to catch me in something. I'm not trying to catch you. Yes, you are, she insisted. And it's exhausting. I can't keep defending myself against your imagination. Imagination. So now I'd imagine the charge too? I asked one question, I said. And I answered it, she replied coldly. If you can't handle that I have a career and attend events without reporting every detail, that's your issue, not mine. There it was again. Your issue, your insecurity, your emotional distance. Nothing about the charge felt like the issue anymore. It was me, my tone, my trust, my character. She grabbed her phone and walked toward the stairs. I'm not going to live under surveillance, she added. If you have trust issues, maybe look inward. The bedroom door closed upstairs, and I remained at the kitchen island, staring at the spot where she'd been sitting. The house felt strangely quiet, not tense, just hollow. I replayed the conversation in my head, looking for where I'd attacked her, where I'd implied something malicious. I couldn't find it. All I'd done was ask. Yet somehow I ended up defending my own sanity. That's when it happened. Not suspicion. Recognition. The speed of her reaction wasn't normal. The intensity wasn't proportional. And the way she pivoted from a financial discrepancy to a character assassination was too polished. Like she'd done it before. I told myself I was overthinking. But a small, controlled voice in the back of my mind said, "No, you're finally thinking clearly." And that was the first crack. After that night, I didn't confront her again. I didn't accuse. I didn't question. I didn't monitor the account. Instead, I started observing. It's strange how clarity works. Once doubt cracks the surface, your memory starts rearranging itself. Moments you once dismissed as harmless suddenly feel structured, connected. Patterns don't look like patterns while you're inside them. But once you step half an inch outside, everything lines up. The late returns home were the first thing that resurfaced in my mind. 3 months ago, Nora started staying late twice a week. At first, it made sense. She'd been angling for a promotion, talking nonstop about leadership opportunities and executive visibility. I can't leave at 5 like everyone else, she told me one night while slipping off her heels by the door. That's how you stagnate. I supported her. Of course I did. But those late nights slowly stopped matching her mood. She wasn't tired when she got home. She was energized. There's a difference between someone exhausted from work and someone charged from attention. I just didn't know how to name it at the time. Then there were the business trips. They increased without much warning. A conference in Dallas. A strategy summit in Chicago. The Atlanta training that apparently detoured through Miami. Each trip came with less detail than the one before. At first, she'd text me hotel photos. Then it became brief updates. Eventually, it was silence until she landed back home. When I asked about her day during those trips, she kept things vague. It was fine. Meetings. Same corporate stuff. No stories. No specifics. That wasn't like her. Nora used to narrate everything. Another thing that stood out now was her appearance. About 4 months ago, she changed her workout routine, hired a trainer, started buying new clothes, not just professional outfits, but things that felt curated. Dresses that weren't meant for office lighting. Heels she never wore around me. I complimented her. "You look incredible," I told her one evening when she walked out in a fitted black dress I'd never seen. She smiled, but it wasn't directed at me. It was the kind of smile you test in a mirror. "Just trying something new," she said lightly. I remember feeling proud of her confidence. Now I wonder who she was dressing for. The phone changes were subtle but consistent. She used to leave it anywhere, on the couch, the kitchen counter, even unlocked on the table while she showered. Then one day it was face down. Then it was always in her hand. Then it was on silent. The biggest shift? It started going dark in the evenings. Powered off. At night. I asked once, trying to sound casual. Battery drains fast lately, she replied without looking up. But I never saw her plug it in. If I walked into a room while she was texting, she angled the screen away. Not dramatically, just instinctively. That instinct wasn't there before. An irritation. God, the irritation. Simple questions became confrontations. Do you know what time you'll be home? I don't know, Adam. I'm not a psychic. Who's hosting the Chicago conference? Why does that matter? Every inquiry felt like an accusation in her eyes. But I wasn't interrogating her. I was trying to stay connected. There was also the emotional distance she kept referencing. You're not ambitious enough, she said once out of nowhere while we were eating dinner. I looked up, confused. What? You're comfortable, she continued. Too comfortable. It feels like I'm the only one pushing forward. That hurt more than I let on. I have a stable career. I provide. I show up. But suddenly that wasn't enough. It felt like she was building a narrative where I was the stagnant one. The anchor. The reason she felt restless. At the time, I thought maybe she was going through something internal. Now I see something else. When someone needs to justify their distance, they start rewriting who you are. You become emotionally unavailable, unambitious, controlling, insecure. It's easier to betray someone who's already flawed in your story. I remembered one specific night 2 months ago. She came home glowing. Not physically glowing, energized. I asked how her day was. Productive, she said with a small smile. She showered immediately after getting home. That stuck with me now. Not because of anything obvious, but because she never used to shower at night. That change aligned with the late evenings. Aligned with the phone silence. Aligned with the wardrobe shift. Aligned with the Miami charge. And then there was Victor, her boss. She mentioned him casually at first. Victor liked my presentation. Victor thinks I'm leadership material. Victor says I have executive presence. The compliments came through him. The validation came through him. I never met him. Every time I suggested attending a company event as her guest, she brushed it off. It's not that kind of environment. Now I replay how often his name surfaced during the same months everything else shifted. Not obsessively, but consistently. Patterns don't scream. They whisper until you're ready to hear them. Sitting alone in the living room after that Miami conversation, I felt something unsettling settle into place. This wasn't a single suspicious charge. It wasn't one defensive argument. It was a progression. Late nights, trips, phone secrecy, appearance overhaul, irritation, emotional rewriting. Each piece alone was explainable. Together they weren't. And the most unsettling realization? She wasn't sloppy. She was careful. Which meant this wasn't spontaneous. It was sustained. I didn't feel rage yet. I felt awareness. And awareness is colder. I stopped looking for reassurance. I started looking for confirmation. Not to explode. Not to confront. But to understand the full picture before I made a move. Because something inside me had shifted too. If she was rewriting the story, I wasn't going to give her the final edit. I didn't confront her. Not after replaying everything. Not after the Miami charge. Not after recognizing the pattern. Confrontation is emotional. Emotion gives people room to manipulate the narrative. I needed facts, so I waited. It didn't take long. 3 nights later, Nora fell asleep on the couch. That never used to happen. She was meticulous about her routines. Skincare, charger plugged in, phone on the nightstand. But that night she'd had wine. 2 glasses, maybe 3. Her phone slipped from her hand onto the cushion beside her. Face up, unlocked. I stood in the hallway longer than I'd like to admit. I've never been the guy who invades privacy. I've always believed trust either exists or it doesn't. but trust had already fractured. And what I needed wasn't suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. I walked over quietly and picked up the phone. For a split second, I hoped I'd find nothing. A clean screen, normal conversations, proof that I'd spiraled for no reason. Instead, the first thing I saw was a muted thread at the top of her messages. Victor. Not Victor Lane work. Not Mr. Lane. Just Victor. The thread was silenced. Hidden in plain sight. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady. I opened it. The messages didn't begin that week. They didn't begin that month. They went back 5 months. 5. The first ones were subtle. Professional. Great presentation today. You handled that client perfectly. Then it shifted. You looked incredible tonight. Dinner was worth the wait. Dinner. On a night she told me she was working late. I kept scrolling. Reservations confirmed for 2 at restaurants she'd never mentioned. Flight confirmations Miami, Chicago, Dallas, booked separately from corporate itineraries. Photos. That's when the air left my lungs. Selfies of them together. Not inappropriate. Not explicit. But int asterisk mate. Close enough that their heads touched. Smiling in hotel mirrors. His hand resting low on her waist. One photo timestamped April 17th. Azure Lounge, Miami Beach. VIP section visible behind them. Her in a silver dress I'd never seen. Him leaning in. Her smiling directly at him. There it was. The $1,842.73. Not corporate networking. Not an extended training. Private evening. I kept reading. The tone evolved. Counting down until I see you again. I hate going home after nights like that. Her response. Me too. That one almost made me drop the phone. Me too. No hesitation. No guilt in her wording. Then came shared travel plans disguised as business. Atlanta is perfect cover. Dallas conference gives us 2 nights. I'll tell Adam it's leadership training. She typed my name. Casually. Like I was a scheduling obstacle. Like I was a logistical detail. The worst part wasn't the romance. It wasn't even the deception. It was the coordination. They strategized. Aligned calendars. Adjusted flights. She wasn't confused. She wasn't swept away. She was deliberate. There were archived folders in her email too. I switched apps. Search. Victor. Hundreds of results. Calendar invites titled Executive Strategy Session. Hotel confirmations forwarded to her personal email. A shared document labeled Future. I hesitated before opening that one. It wasn't about projects. It wasn't about work. It was a list. Cities. Opportunities. Speculation about what life would look like without complications. Without complications. That's what I was. Complication. The affair wasn't new. It wasn't impulsive. It was sustained. Months of shared trips. Months of nights she blamed on corporate growth. Months of me being labeled emotionally distant while she built int asterisk Macy elsewhere. I didn't wake her. I didn't shake her shoulder and demand an explanation. I didn't screech asterisk T anything. I didn't need to. The evidence was complete. Photos. Reservations. Messages. Coordinated lies. A months-long double life. And here's the part that surprised me. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I felt something colder. Final. When you argue, there's still hope you're misunderstanding. When you suspect, there's still doubt. But when you read your own name inside a lie, there's no ambiguity left. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Face up. Unlocked. She shifted slightly in her sleep, unaware that her entire marriage had just ended silently beside her. I walked upstairs alone, sat on the edge of our bed, looked at the framed photo from our anniversary last year, and I understood something clearly. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about control. She controlled the narrative for months. She controlled what I knew. She controlled the perception of our marriage. And she expected to control the ending too. A dramatic confrontation. A messy fight. A tearful plea where she reframed it as loneliness or my ambition or my distance. I wasn't going to give her that. The loud reaction would give her something to push against. The quiet one would give her nothing. By the time she woke up the next morning, I had already decided. I wouldn't confront. I wouldn't argue. I would exit. Completely. And in a way she couldn't rewrite. Because the most painful thing for someone who lives in deception is losing the audience. The morning after I read everything, I made her coffee. That was the first move. Not because I felt kind. Because I felt finished. Nora came downstairs in one of my old college sweatshirts. Hair loose, expression soft from sleep. She smiled at me like nothing had shifted in the universe overnight. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I replied evenly. I watched her carefully, not searching for guilt, searching for awareness. There was none. She moved through the kitchen, scrolling her phone, probably checking in with him, probably confirming whatever narrative they were building for the week. I felt strangely detached. When you finally see the full picture, the emotional storm quiets. It's like stepping outside of a burning building you didn't know you were standing in. She kissed my cheek before leaving for work. "Don't work too late," she said casually. I almost laughed. After she left, I didn't sit down. I didn't spiral. I didn't reread the messages. I opened my laptop. First call, attorney. I chose one with a reputation for discretion. Not aggression. Precision. When I sat in his office later that afternoon, I didn't dramatize anything. I laid out the facts. Joint assets. No children. Evidence of a sustained affair. He asked one question. "Do you want confrontation or resolution?" "Resolution," I said immediately. He nodded. "Then don't react emotionally. Let paperwork speak." That aligned perfectly. Second move, finances. I separated accounts legally, cleanly. Not vindicatively, strategically. No dramatic freezes. Just restructuring. Third move, housing. I secured a short-term lease in another state. Texas. Far enough to remove proximity. Close enough to handle legal proceedings without chaos. I didn't pack that day. I didn't change behavior. If she expected volatility, she wasn't going to get it. Over the next 2 weeks, I became predictable. Steady. Polite. Almost warmer than usual. That's what disarms someone who believes they control the narrative. She continued her pattern. Late nights. Business dinners. Occasional irritation when I asked simple logistical questions. But something shifted in her tone too. Confidence. There's a specific kind of confidence people get when they think they're untouchable. When they believe they're managing both worlds successfully. Victor's name surfaced more casually now. "Victor thinks I should consider relocation." Relocation. Interesting. I nodded thoughtfully. "You should consider what's best for you," I said. She looked surprised. "I thought you'd push back." "Why would I?" She studied me carefully. That was the first time I saw uncertainty flicker in her. When you stop resisting, manipulators lose footing. The paperwork was drafted within 10 days. Clean. Irreversible. I didn't plan to serve it at home. That would create drama. I needed something symbolic. Something controlled. Her family had a large gathering scheduled in Texas for her father's retirement celebration. Extended relatives, colleagues, and Victor was attending. She told me about it proudly. "He's been a huge mentor," she said. Mentor. The irony almost impressed me. The event would be public enough to matter, but controlled enough to avoid spectacle. I arranged everything in advance. Legal notices timed. Financial transfers queued. Professional ethics complaint filed anonymously with documented evidence. Not emotional. Procedural. Victor held a position that required disclosure of internal relationships. He hadn't disclosed. That wasn't revenge. It was consequence. The night before the event, Nora tried on dresses in our bedroom. "Which one?" she asked, holding up 2 options. "Red," I said calmly. She smiled. "You've been different lately," she said lightly. "In a good way." I held her gaze. "How so?" "Less tense. Less suspicious." I almost told her the truth then. "I'm not suspicious anymore. I'm certain. Instead, I said, maybe I've just accepted things. She interpreted that however she wanted. At the event in Texas, the atmosphere was loud and celebratory. Victor arrived 20 minutes after we did. Confident, charismatic. He hugged Nora in front of everyone. A fraction too familiar. I watched without expression. She stayed close to him most of the evening. Whispers, private jokes, body language that would look harmless to strangers. Not to me. I didn't interrupt. I didn't confront. I didn't create a scene. About an hour in, I stepped outside onto the patio where her sister Claire was standing alone with a glass of wine. Claire always liked me. She sensed tension lately but never pressed. You okay? She asked gently. Yeah, I said. I slipped my wedding ring off my finger. The weight of it leaving my hand felt strange. I placed it in her palm. She looked down, confused. What are you doing? I'm done, I said quietly. You'll understand soon. Her face shifted from confusion to shock. Inside, laughter echoed from the dining hall. Nora's voice carried clearly, carefree, unaware. I walked back inside briefly, long enough to see her across the room with Victor, leaning close, smiling with absolute certainty that she was in control of everything. Then I left. No announcement, no argument, no explanation. By the time she noticed I was gone, I was already on the highway. Her phone started ringing in my car minutes later. I didn't answer. Simultaneously, 3 things happened. The divorce paperwork was electronically filed. Joint account restructuring finalized. The ethics report reached Victor's compliance board. Control doesn't shatter loudly. It disappears quietly. And when it does, the silence is deafening. I drove through the night toward a life she wasn't part of. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not because I won, but because I stopped playing. I didn't answer the first call, or the second. By the 5th, my phone stopped vibrating and started lighting up silently on the passenger seat like a dying pulse. Nora, 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 then Claire, then Nora again. I kept driving. There's a strange clarity that comes when you've already accepted the end. The chaos on the other side doesn't feel like your responsibility anymore. About 40 minutes into the drive, the text started. Where are you? What was that? Why did you leave? Then, Claire just showed me the ring. What is going on? I didn't respond, because explanations give people room to negotiate. And I wasn't negotiating. By the time I crossed state lines, the tone shifted. Adam, please, just answer me. Then, if this is about Victor, you're misunderstanding everything. Of course. Misunderstanding. The same word she used when I questioned Miami. The same tone she used when I asked simple questions. But this time, there was no audience for the performance. An hour later, a new message came through. Victor just got a call from compliance. What did you do? I almost smiled. Not out of cruelty. Out of inevitability. Consequences feel shocking only when you believe you're immune to them. I didn't fabricate anything. I submitted documentation, dates, messages, travel confirmations. Victor held a senior leadership position. Company policy required disclosure of relationships with direct reports. He hadn't disclosed. That wasn't revenge. That was structure correcting itself. By midnight, I reached my temporary apartment in Texas. It wasn't glamorous, just clean, neutral, mine. I set my phone face down on the counter and took a shower. When I stepped out, there were 12 missed calls. 3 voicemails. I listened to one. Her voice was unsteady. Adam, I don't understand what you're doing. You're overreacting. We can fix this. Just come back and talk to me. Overreacting. Interesting choice of words. The second voicemail was different. Victor is being investigated. They're saying it's a conflict of interest issue. If this is you, this is extreme. You're destroying everything. No, I thought quietly. You did that months ago. The third voicemail was softer. Please don't disappear like this. But that's exactly what I was doing. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Strategically. The next morning, the legal service confirmed delivery. She was formally notified. Divorce proceedings initiated. Financial separation executed. Her access to certain joint liquidity accounts restricted per legal counsel. Not frozen, just untangled. At 10:17 a.m., she texted, "You filed? Without talking to me?" Yes, that was the point, because talking would have given her space to rewrite it. At noon, another message, "Victor has been placed on administrative leave. They're interviewing people. This is humiliating." Humiliating. That word again. I realized something in that moment. She wasn't grieving the marriage. She was panicking about control. By 3 p.m., Claire called. I answered her. She didn't sound angry. She sounded stunned. "Adam, she's spiraling. Dad's event turned into a disaster. Victor left early. People are asking questions." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "I didn't create that," I said calmly. "I know," Claire replied quietly. "But she didn't think you'd actually leave." That sentence landed differently than everything else. She didn't think I'd leave, which means she believed she could manage both lives indefinitely. That confidence wasn't love. It was calculation. Over the next 48 hours, everything accelerated. Victor's position was officially suspended pending investigation. Corporate gossip moves faster than facts. Within days, the narrative shifted from mentor to improper relationship. Nora's role was directly under his chain of supervision. That made her employment vulnerable. Not because of morality, because of liability. HR scheduled interviews. Internal audits began reviewing expense reports. Travel overlaps surfaced. Azure Lounge appeared on documentation. That $1,842.73 wasn't just symbolic. It was traceable. She called again that night. I answered. Silence filled the line for a few seconds before she spoke. "You didn't have to ruin my career." "I didn't," I replied evenly. "You risked it. This didn't have to go public." "It didn't," I said again. "You could have disclosed." She exhaled sharply. "You're being vindictive." "No," I corrected calmly. "I'm being final." That word stopped her. Final. She shifted tactics. "Adam, I made mistakes, but we can still work through this. You don't throw away a marriage like this." I let the silence stretch. "You already did," I said quietly. She started crying. Real tears this time. Not defensive. Not sharp. Panicked. "I'm losing everything." I closed my eyes briefly. "I lost it months ago," I replied. Then I ended the call. Within a week, the formal separation announcement circulated at her company. Victor resigned before termination proceedings completed. Nora was placed on probation pending review of disclosure violations. Her professional circle changed overnight. The same colleagues who praised her ambition started keeping distance. Not because they hated her, because reputations carry risk. At family gatherings, whispers replaced admiration. Claire texted me once more. She didn't expect this to implode so fast. That's the thing about double lives. They feel stable until the structure collapses. And collapse is never gradual. It's immediate. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I signed documents, transferred utilities, updated mailing addresses. Each action small. Each action irreversible. She tried one last time to meet in person. "I need closure," she said over the phone. Closure is a luxury for people who didn't already have the truth. "You have it," I said. "It was in the messages." Then I hung up. The most painful consequence for someone who manipulates narrative is silence. No screaming. No dramatic accusations. No public humiliation from me. Just absence. And absence is heavier than anger. By the time the investigation concluded, Victor's resignation was permanent. Nora's promotion track was dissolved. Her name carried quiet caution in corporate circles. And I was already gone. Not hiding. Not running. Just removed. The collapse wasn't explosive. It was structural. One calm gesture. One ring placed in another hand. One departure without explanation. Stronger than any argument could have been. Starting over wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. I furnished the Texas apartment with the basics and kept my routine simple: gym, work, sleep. No late-night spirals. No checking her social media. The silence felt strange at first, like phantom pain after losing something you carried for years. But slowly, the quiet turned into clarity. I wasn't anxious anymore. I wasn't scanning for lies. I wasn't questioning my own sanity. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months reached out when they heard. None of them were surprised. That told me more than anything. Nora tried once more, an email this time. No anger, just regret. I read it once, then archived it. Some doors don't need slamming. They just need closing. Months later, I heard she moved cities. Victor was gone from the company. Her name rarely came up. When it did, it wasn't with admiration. I didn't feel satisfaction, just distance. One evening, I opened the small box where I'd kept my ring after taking it back from Claire. I didn't put it on. I just looked at it. It wasn't a symbol of failure. It was a reminder. Calm can be stronger than chaos. Walking away can be louder than shouting. Nora thought the worst thing would be a confrontation. It wasn't. The worst thing was losing the version of me that stayed. And that version, he wasn't coming back.